What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Scotty O, aka the Gen Z attorney, and I'm a real-life prosecutor. I'm an assistant district attorney in North Carolina, meaning I'm in court every day and I'm putting bad guys in jail. So what I do on this channel is break down the high-profile criminal cases of our day, and what better case to talk about than the Scottie Scheffler case. Now, I wasn't planning on talking about this case because from when we first heard about it and heard about what was happening and how just kind of the facts on the ground, I think anyone with a reasonable mind looked at it and realized, oh, okay, this is just big misunderstanding, big miscommunication. Okay, charges, they'll get dropped. There's no way that Scotty Scheffler committed a felony assault on a police officer at this point. But it seems like everyone's kind of in agreement on that, and so I wasn't going to cover it because I was expecting that to happen. So imagine my surprise when I watched the press conferences from the mayor of Louisville and the police chief, and they announced that they're not dropping the charges. And then I watched the DA go into court and basically throw a temper tantrum over a very normal, run-of-the-mill, reasonable request from the defense to delay the arraignment by a week, 2 weeks. So seeing that kind of stuff made me realize, oh, this is kind of a big deal. This is a case that should have just been done with already, should have been gotten rid of, is now, not only is it being proceeded on, but the people that are pursuing it seem to be very personally interested and personally invested in pursuing this prosecution. So that's why I'm here to talk about it and tell you everything you need to know about the Scottie Scheffler felony case. So what I want to do is just start at the beginning and talk about the day I woke up a little over a week ago now and saw the headline that Scottie Scheffler, #1 golfer in the world, has been arrested for felony assault on a police officer. My initial reaction was, okay, maybe he's a celebrity, you know, and what they like to go out and party hard, and so maybe he'd gone out, got a little too drunk, got a little too aggressive, belligerent. Cop steps in, says, okay, you've had enough, and I don't know, maybe he pushed him or something. That was kind of my initial feeling based on just him being a celebrity, being an athlete, and these types of charges, how they've happened before. But then I thought, wait, he's in the middle of a tournament. He just played round 1 out of 4. Why would he be going out and getting wasted when there's 3 more rounds to play? So quickly realized, oh, that can't be what happened. So, but then if that's not what happened then? This is such a weird case. All we had that morning was some video from the scene of him being taken away in the handcuffs. And not a lot of information to glean from that other than the scene, the situation, which at that point, right, we could see, okay, it's still dark out. It's really early in the morning. It was dark out. There was flashing lights. It was raining. Basically what had happened that morning was there was a pedestrian that was hit by a shuttle bus at the golf club in Louisville, and that pedestrian ended up dying. And because of that, there was a huge response, a bunch of police that were out there to direct traffic, because you've got a tournament where there's tens of thousands of people trying to get in, and to a golf club where you're not usually you may be having a few hundred people there at a time. So this is a huge event, and now there's been a huge traffic block with police out there to try and direct it and get people in. So that's kind of the scene, that's the situation. It's dark, it's rainy, flashing lights, hard to see what's happening. Police are wearing their high-vis reflector jackets, which, if you know that's what police wear, then you would know that was a police officer. But if you didn't know that, then you could think that was just a maybe event staffer, someone who works for the venue. Either way, it's a very confusing, chaotic situation, and that's all we knew at that point. That was kind of the setup, and then we saw that Scotty had been arrested. According to the officer, he basically saw a car going onto the median trying to shortcut around the traffic, and when the officer told him to stop, he did not stop. Instead, he sped up, and the officer went for a ride essentially on the side of the car until he fell off and hurt his wrist pretty bad. So he said the driver, who was Scotty Scheffler, said the driver was aggressive, he was angry, he wasn't listening to instructions, whatever it may be. That's his story, and that's why he ended up getting charged with what he got charged with. So then, of course, Scotty gets taken to jail. He gets booked, his bond gets set, he posts bond immediately because he's a #1 golfer in the world, he's got the money for it. And yeah, his tee time was set for like 8 a.m., Had to get delayed till about 10, I think, for him to get back in time. But he did make it back, and I believe he actually birdied the first hole after he got back. So didn't faze him at all. Just powered through the guy's machine. The reason it's #1 in the world. But either way, so that first day, that's all we really know. And it's just a very weird, confusing situation that we don't have a lot of information on. And my policy for all things like this is always going to be wait and see. Let's wait for the facts to come out so we can have a better discussion about it. And the most important fact we're waiting on would be the body cam. What is on the body cam of the officer who was allegedly hit by this car? And we finally got our first information from the mayor of Louisville and the police chief, who came out and did a press conference where they kind of talked about the situation, talked about the tragedy of the person who died, and then talked about how it was dark and chaotic and tense. And all that seems to be, preface for, and because of all that, we understand this is just basically miscommunication, big misunderstanding, and the city will not be proceeding on any charges against Scotty Scheffler. That's what it seemed like they were setting up for, but instead, all they revealed at the press conference was that the officer's body cam was not on.
Detective Gillis should have turned on his body-worn camera, but did not.
So we're not going to be able to see exactly what happened leading up to the arrest. All they really have are 2 other videos that show the arrest itself, but nothing leading up to it. So I talked about how that was a violation of department policy to not have body cam active or turned on at the time. As much as that sucks, and I wish we had the body cam, I'm quite understanding why it may not have been on here. I mean, this officer, all he was doing was directing traffic at the time. And body cam, you can't just have it on the entire day. The policy is usually you turn it on when you're about to do something. So I can understand why an officer may not have expected, while he was directing traffic, to have this altercation where, according to him, he just sees a car come over the median and basically hit him. I can understand not thinking, okay, I need to turn my body cam on to record this. So, but yeah, still a violation of policy, but it's not one. I don't think he should be fired or anything for it. But either way, so they do this press conference. They announce we don't have body cam, but we do have these other videos. So they did say they're only releasing 2 videos for transparency purposes, which is good. I like that. I agree with that. But then they said all their other videos they have are not going to be released per the request of the district attorney. That I really don't like. That's my philosophy is, as a prosecutor, is you show your hand right out the gate. I'm showing defendants, I'm showing their attorneys everything that I've got, all my evidence, because I want them to know what they're up against. And 99 times out of 100, they see what they're up against, and they just choose to plead guilty because they know they're not going to win a trial with the facts at hand. So I'm a fan. Maximum transparency. You show everything. So the fact that they're selectively releasing stuff is a little questionable, I will say. Especially because the video we do have doesn't really show too much. It kind of shows the officer. It shows Scotty pulling in, going very slow. It shows the officer running after him. It looks like he hits his car. I don't know, with his elbow, with his hand, or what. It's pretty weird. And then basically, there's like a 15-20 second shouting match of him shouting into the car. It looks like he's shouting at least. And then reaching into the car, trying to open the door, putting his head into the car. So unclear exactly what he's doing. If he's trying to reach in to unbuckle Scotty, trying to reach in to unlock the car so he can open the door and pull him out. Whatever it is, it's like this officer is heated. He is hot. And eventually, right, they get the door open. They pull Scotty out and immediately turn around, push him up against the side of the car, and handcuff him. And yeah, that's really all we can see. That's all we have. We have the video from the first day of him being walked away, taken to the police station, but really not too much to go off of based on what happened, which, all that to say, right, this cop is saying he got ran over, and then the driver, Scotty, was very angry and belligerent. None of this is adding up for Scotty Scheffler as a person. All accounts say that he's one of the nicest guys on the entire PGA Tour. He just had a newborn child at home. When he gave his acceptance speech for winning the Masters last month, it was very humble. All it was thanks. Just thanks to the staff, thanks to the training staff, thanks to the catering staff. It was like every single person you could think of, he wanted to make sure he thanked everybody. So seems just like a really straight up, solid dude. And it's very unlikely to think that he would do this in the first place, and then that he would see a cop, realize it's a cop, run him over, and then get angry when the cop came up and confronted him about it. Just, it's not passing the smell test, to say the least. So anyway, so this video gets released, and we're able to kind of see it. We're able to see it and talk about it. And right, the consensus is starting to grow that, like, wait, if you guys are accepting this as a chaotic misunderstanding, why are you trying to make this guy a convicted felon? Which is very serious charge, very serious thing to do. Not entirely clear why they're trying to, at least not at the time. But I think we got a lot more illumination on what's really going on here when the defense attorney, Stephen Romines, made a motion to continue arraignment. Now, basically all that means is an arraignment is when you go into court and they ask you, how do you plead? And you plead guilty or not guilty. In Kentucky law, you have to be present for that unless your presence is waived. So they had the arraignment date set, but the only problem was the defense attorney, Mr. Romines, his calendar, they didn't check with his calendar before they set the date. It turns out he had some other stuff to do on that date, so he made a motion to continue the arraignment by 2 weeks. Very common, very reasonable request. You know, my docket every day is about 100 cases, you know, give or take, can be as low as 50, as high as 200, whatever it may be. But either way, on any given day, probably 3/4 of my cases are continuances. It's only 20 to 25% that actually get handled on a court day. The other 75-80% get continued out because the defendant, defense attorney, whoever it may be, isn't ready to proceed on that day. So this is just a very common, reasonable, understandable request, especially considering Scotty flew back home to Dallas after the tournament to be with his wife and newborn baby, and the attorney's basically saying, we don't want to have him fly back for basically what's a 5-minute proceeding to plead, because he doesn't even say anything. It's the defense attorney will say not guilty, and then they'll set a new court date to handle pre-trial preliminary motions and go from there. So defense attorney saying we don't want to have him fly back for that 5-minute proceeding. We want to push this out 2 weeks to give us some more time to talk with the DA's office and get some more evidence and maybe reach an arrangement, maybe reach a resolution before, so that way when Scotty comes back, maybe we can have the case handled on that day, ideally for their position by having it dismissed. So like I said, very reasonable, very understandable. And the DA's office response was not only to object to the request, but the elected district attorney, the boss of the office, the big boss, came down into court to object personally. Now, my elected DA, my boss, has only come into my court maybe once or twice. I think actually only once, and it was for intentional murder of an unborn baby, where a guy basically assaulted his girlfriend who was pregnant with either his child or someone else's child, assaults her with the intent, and like hitting her stomach with the intent to kill the baby. That's something my boss takes very, very seriously, as evidenced by the fact she came into court to handle his first appearance and to argue for his bond. And I believe he got set with no bond at all. So not even like $1 million, $2 million or whatever. It's just pure. There's no bond at all. You can't bond out on this. You're going to be held in jail until your trial. So when the elected DA comes into court, it's a big deal. It means they care a lot about the case. So the fact that the elected DA came into court, not only that, but there's 3 DAs. There's 2 assistant DAs and then the elected DA that are in court objecting to this continuance. And then here's the best part though. They don't even object, or they're not even really objecting specifically to what the defense is asking. The defense is asking, we just want to continue the case by 2 weeks. The state comes in, the DA comes in, and starts talking about Kentucky Supreme Court language about you can only waive a client's presence when appropriate. And he keeps using this phrase over and over again, when appropriate, when appropriate. But that's not what the defense is asking. And the judge even called out the DA, called him out, and said, wait, did I misread something? Did I get this wrong? My reading of this motion is they just want to push the arraignment out 2 weeks, in which case Scotty's going to be here in 2 weeks.
Maybe I'm confused. I feel like he's just asking to move the arraignment, not to make his client
Correct.
not here. So is that you're
That's
just
correct,
asking
Judge. If
to move it?
we
Not
haven't resolved the case by June 3rd, he'll be here with me in court. That's.
so again, he's just asking to move the arraignment, not to waive his presence.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's the order.
Well, and I object. I think we need to get the arraignment done, and then let's begin the process of trying to see when and if this matter could be resolved prior to the next court date. The standard is when appropriate, not whether we all agree about it, we all think it's a good idea, it all sounds good. It's when and if it's appropriate. And respectfully, the Commonwealth does not think that this is appropriate to do that. So we don't have an agreement, Judge, and I don't think we're required to show prejudice. It's when appropriate.
No. And Judge, this is an adversarial system. They're on one side, I'm on the other. I made the motion, they're objecting. He keeps referring to when appropriate, which is specifically referring to remote appearance. There's nothing about inappropriate regarding moving a court date. It happens every day. And so Mr. O'Connell says, well, we don't want to treat him differently. Then go through and look how many cases are agreed to by continuance by the county every day. They are absolutely treating him differently, right? And they have no basis for it. He keeps referring to when appropriate. That is not, that language does not refer to motions to continue. It refers to remote appearance, and we're not asking for that, Judge.
They're not talking about waiving his presence. It's not. And the defense attorney is like, you're right. That's exactly right. We're not asking to waive his presence. We just want to push this out. And then the DA responds to that by going back to this when appropriate. But when appropriate only applies to waiving presence. So his entire objection is not even responding to what's being asked. And he gets very heated about it. And this is very animated objection, very animated hearing. So it's almost shocking at not only are they giving the appearance that like they are gung-ho, they're not dismissing the case. The phrase they're using was, well, Mr. Scheffler, he has to be treated like everyone else. Which, true, no one's above the law. But by singling him out and objecting to his continuance request, seems to be because he's who he is. By definition, now you are treating him unlike anyone else, because anyone else, you wouldn't have a problem continuing the arraignment by 2 weeks. And also, are you coming down into court for anybody else, Mr. DA? Like, no, you came into court for this case, in this case only. So yeah, by definition, it appears you are trying to treat him unlike everybody else, despite you saying we need to treat him like everybody else. So it's giving some very good insight into how this DA's office is approaching this case, because keep in mind, even if the mayor and the police chief wanted to dismiss it, at this point, once the charges have been filed, it's now solely up to the district attorney to decide how they're going to proceed. And the fact that this DA wanted to come into court to personally argue an objection, even though his objection has nothing to do with what's actually being asked, he's objecting to something totally different, which is not being asked. I don't know, it's showing an attitude that the DA feels like, he's got himself a whale here. He's got a huge case, huge publicity, and he loves it. He wants it. He wants all of it. He wants to proceed on all the charges, prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, really nail this guy, and I guess build his profile, build his publicity that way. But I don't think he's realizing it's backfiring immensely. Everyone is building a consensus right now that these charges are stupid and the case should be dismissed.
A lot of high horses in Louisville.
Move past this and figure it out.
Louisville district attorney says I need a little more time.
They have the highest horses down there, Pat. You should know that.
They got fast, high horses, don't they, Louisville?
That's the horse state.
I didn't even think about how high and fast their horses are.
Yeah. Move.
That Louisville district attorney is like, he thinks he's going to play in a golf tournament. People are paying to come see him play.
Not a chance.
And he's going to not listen in the middle of rain and darkness in the morning. And we're going to put him in an orange jumpsuit. And the whole world is going to ridicule and mock the whole situation. He's going to come out and say it was a misunderstanding, say the cops are just doing their job. You think we're just going to let that slide? I don't think so. Not in this city.
No.
Say June.
Is there any body cam footage so we can see what's happening? Absolutely not. Shut up. You know how early it was in the morning? You think those cameras are already charged? Absolutely not. What are we even talking about? It's amazing. Everybody on Earth thought that thing was going to be dropped, and that guy said.
On a Mohawk.
No chance. You see the way I'm riding this damn thing?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're out here and you're doing what you're doing and being like, no, we're going to go full speed, all full steam ahead, throw the book at this guy, we're going to nail him. It's making you look insane. And the fact that you're in court arguing things that aren't even being brought up, yeah, it's wild. It's wild that this is the elected DA doing this. But so either way, though, the judge kind of sniffed it out. The judge realized that the DA doesn't really know what he's talking about right here.
How would the county be prejudiced in any way if we move? I'm not asking, so I've thought about this, and I'm going to require the defendant to be present unless somehow there is an agreement made before court, and then I will still rule on it. But I will rule upon whether or not, at this point, if you're asking me if the defendant must be present, my answer is yes, okay? I believe that the motion that Mr. Romines has on today is to move the arraignment. How will the county be prejudiced in anything if the arraignment is moved? Whenever I have set aside something as a summons, or whenever I set arraignment dates, I usually ask if the person is represented by counsel, something that's convenient for their calendar. Additionally, if they don't even have counsel, I'll ask the defendant sitting in my jury box when is appropriate for them to come back. I'm not, so I pick an arraignment date, whatever's convenient for the court's calendar, and the defendant and or an attorney if represented. So I do that every single person that comes before me. So I try to make it convenient for people's calendars if they have other things going on. So if you'll just make me aware of how it prejudices the county if I do grant, and again, my order as of this moment, unless brought before me again, and that's not what Mr. Romines is asking me.
Correct.
Mr. Romines is asking me to move the arraignment date, not waive his presence. So at this time, again, I am not waiving his presence. I am wondering why the county is objecting to his arraignment being on June 3rd rather than May 21st, if that's more convenient for Mr. Romines' calendar.
And this is a very normal request, so the judge grants it, and the arraignment got pushed out to June 3rd. So that's kind of our next step, what we're waiting on next to see what happens. We'll see if the case gets dismissed by then, but that's why I just wanted to talk about this and bring it up to show you kind of step by step what's happened with this case so far, and tell you as a prosecutor kind of like how I would be approaching it and seeing this case if it were my case. But all we can really do now is wait and see and wait for what happens next. The next step is going to be the arraignment on June 3rd. And you best believe I'll be watching very closely, and I will give you the updates as they come. But that is the Scottie Scheffler case explained fully. If you have any questions about the case, please drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this case. If you agree, should be dismissed. Is this another example of prosecutor getting a little too big for his britches? Or is this justified? Is it the DA is going to stand by their cops? If the cop says what happened, the DA is going to back it up and vouch for it? Either way, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, definitely let me know down below. I'll be down there talking with y'all as always. And if you enjoy learning about court cases and really diving deep into them and understanding what's really going on, then yeah, drop a like and subscribe to come back for more. This is what I do here. And hopefully you can continue to come back and learn a little more each time. Besides that, I am in the middle of a move, so I will have a new setup very soon. So stay tuned for that, very exciting. And yeah, I will see you all on the next one.